The old Blackwood Manor stood on the cliff, dark and silent. A shroud of fog rolled in from the sea. It had been empty for decades, yet tonight a lone car crawled up the drive. The engine sputtered and died. Silence fell again. A figure emerged from the car, pulling a long coat tight against the chill. They walked towards the house, each step echoing in the stillness. At the top of the steps, a heavy, ornate door stood ajar. An invitation or a warning? With a deep breath, the figure stepped inside. The grand hall was aglow with candlelight. Shadows danced on the high ceiling. Music drifted from a hidden gramophone, an eerie waltz. Masked figures in vintage attire moved through the room, whispering, laughing, their faces hidden behind elaborate masks. It was a midnight gala, an event shrouded in mystery. One guest stood apart, taller than the others. Their mask, a simple white porcelain, hid their features. They seemed to be searching for something. Their eyes scanned the room, restless, haunted. The guest in the white mask moved through the crowd. They brushed past a dusty display case. Their fingers lingered on the glass. Something inside caught their eye. It was a cameo, a woman's profile carved in blood-red stone. It rested on a faded velvet cushion. As the guest stared, it began to glow. A faint, ethereal light emanated from the cameo. A hush fell over the room. The music stopped. All eyes turned towards the glowing display case. The guest in the white mask reached out. Their gloved fingers touched the cold glass. As the guest touched the case, the cameo pulsed brighter. Then, with a gasp, the guest stumbled back. Their white mask clattered to the floor. A collective gasp went through the room. The guest who stood revealed was a young woman. Her eyes were wide with shock, her face pale in the flickering candlelight. But it was her resemblance to the woman in the cameo that drew gasps. The likeness was uncanny, the same delicate features, the same melancholic eyes. It was as if the woman in the cameo had stepped out of the past. Section 5. The clock strikes 1. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed once, twice. The sound echoed through the silent corridor. A heavy, resonant sound that seemed to reverberate through the room. The guests stirred. Whispers broke out again. The spell was broken, but the young woman remained frozen in place, unmoving, her eyes fixed on the glowing cameo, unblinking. The woman in the cameo seemed to be looking back at her. Across time and space, a connection was made. A message in her eyes. A warning or something more, or a plea for help. The mystery deepened. Section 6. An unexpected inheritance. The night was still, the air thick with mystery as the moon cast eerie shadows on the old mansion. An old man with a shock of white hair stepped forward, his movements deliberate and filled with a sense of purpose. He peered at the young woman over his spectacles, his eyes narrowing as if trying to see into her very soul. Recognition dawned on his face. "My word," he breathed, his voice trembling with emotion. "It can't be, but it is." He introduced himself as the caretaker of Blackwood Manor, a position he had held for decades, guarding its secrets and stories. He explained that the woman in the cameo was Eleanor Blackwood, a name that echoed through the annals of the manor's history. The last of her line, a woman of grace and mystery, whose legacy had been shrouded in whispers and shadows. And the young woman, he claimed, was her spitting image, a living reflection of the past. He spoke of a family legend, a tale passed down through generations, filled with intrigue and sorrow. A story of a lost heir, a granddaughter who vanished without a trace, leaving a void in the family's lineage. Could this be her? The resemblance was uncanny, almost as if time had folded in on itself. Had she returned at last? The young woman stood there, puzzled and overwhelmed, the weight of the past pressing down on her. The night was filled with questions, and the answers seemed just out of reach, hidden within the walls of Blackwood Manor. Section 7. Echoes in the ballroom. The guests, their curiosity piqued, urged the young woman to try on the cameo. They watched with bated breath as she fastened the antique brooch to her dress. As soon as the cameo touched her skin, the room seemed to shift. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange energy. The music from the gramophone changed. It became a lively waltz. The guests, caught up in the moment, began to dance, their steps light and carefree, as if the mansion itself was alive with music and laughter once more. Section 8. The Mansion Remembers. The old mansion stood silent, its walls whispering secrets of the past. The gates creaked open, inviting those who dared to enter. The young woman felt a pull towards the grand ballroom. It was as if the very air around her was guiding her steps, urging her forward. She moved as if in a trance, her feet barely touching the ground. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, yet she felt no fear, only a strange sense of belonging. The guests parted to let her pass. They moved with an eerie grace, their eyes never leaving her. It was as if they recognized her, as if she was one of them. Their eyes followed her every move, filled with a mixture of curiosity and longing. She felt their gaze like a physical touch, guiding her towards the center of the room. The ballroom was bathed in an ethereal light, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. The light seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, illuminating the room in a ghostly glow. Shadows swirled in the corners, moving with a life of their own. They whispered secrets of the past, tales of love and loss, of joy and sorrow. And in the center of the room, she saw them, couples waltzing gracefully, their movements perfectly synchronized. They danced as if they had been doing so for centuries, their faces serene and content, their laughter echoing through the years, a haunting melody that filled the room. It was a sound both beautiful and tragic, a reminder of a time long gone. But these were not the guests of the midnight gala. They were something more, something otherworldly. Their presence filled the room with a sense of history, of lives once lived and now remembered. These were figures from the past, their faces blurred, indistinct, as if seen through a veil of time. Yet there was something familiar about them, a sense of recognition that tugged at her heart. Their forms shimmering like heat on the horizon, almost transparent. They moved with a grace that seemed otherworldly, their bodies barely touching the ground. Ghosts of Blackwood Manor, dancing as they had in life. They were a testament to the mansion's history, a living memory of a time long past, and as she watched them, she felt a connection, a bond that transcended time and space. Section 9. A glimpse beyond the veil. The young woman watched, mesmerized. She felt a connection to these ghostly dancers, to this place, to her own forgotten past. The cameo on her dress pulsed with warmth. It was as if it was showing her the truth, revealing the secrets hidden within the walls of Blackwood Manor. She saw glimpses of a life she never knew, a family torn apart by tragedy, a love story cut short, and a legacy shrouded in mystery. Section 10. Until we meet again. The clock chimed again, echoing through the grand halls of Blackwood Manor. This time it was midnight, the witching hour, when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. The ghostly dancers began to fade. The music slowed, its haunting melody lingering in the air. The light dimmed, casting long shadows across the room. The guests, released from their trance, looked around in confusion, their eyes, once glazed over, now filled with bewilderment and fear. The old caretaker hurried to the young woman's side, his heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. But she was gone, vanished into thin air, as if she had never been there at all, as if she had never been. The spot where she stood was now just an empty void, a stark reminder of her sudden disappearance. Only the red cameo lay on the ballroom floor, a small, delicate piece of jewellery, its vibrant colours standing out against the dark, polished wood. A single point of colour in the gathering darkness. It was a symbol of her presence, a token of her existence in this world, a reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried. The cameo was a clue, a piece of a puzzle that had yet to be solved, and that some stories are destined to be repeated. The events of that night were not unique. They were part of a cycle, a pattern that had played out many times before. The guests left Blackwood Manor that night, forever changed by what they had witnessed. Their minds were filled with questions, their hearts heavy with the weight of the unknown. Whispering of ghosts and unanswered questions, they spoke in hushed tones, afraid that speaking too loudly might summon the spirits back. And the legend of the lost heir of Blackwood Manor lived on. It was a story passed down through generations, a tale of mystery and intrigue that captivated all who heard it. Waiting for the night she would return again. The manor stood silent, its grand ballroom empty, but filled with a sense of anticipation. The clock would chime again, and the cycle would begin anew.